Hello, and welcome to Around the Lens, Episode 1. This is a roundtable photojournalism, visual journalism podcast talking all about the news and issues of the day related to our field, our craft. And we are 4, 3, 5. The number is always up in the air every week, but we're a group of photojournalists who love talking about the field and want to talk about the various aspects and different stories going on. So we've got a host of different topics we're going to talk about tonight, dealing everything from National Geographic to virtual reality to the future of photojournalism and everything we think about it. But before we do that, let me introduce you to the voices that you're going to hear tonight. First, me. My name is David J. Murphy. I'm a photojournalist. I've been doing it for about 15 plus years. I currently live and work in Charleston, South Carolina. My panelists today are Zach Roberts and Julie Dermansky. Why don't you introduce yourselves? Zach?
I'm a photojournalist. I've worked for everybody from The Village Voice to BBC to The Guardian. I also work as a researcher and traveled from Kiev to Arizona.
Okay, great. Thank you. Julie?
Some days I'm a photojournalist. Other days I'm a videographer, a writer. It's kind of like all in one. I was a fine artist for about 2 decades. I was a welder, had a craft business, and a lot of the skills I learned in the art world I took over into the photo world. And just at a certain point, I was done with what I was doing and just closed up shop and hit the road. So that was 10 years ago. And that's when I just got some new digital gear and a computer and took off. And I'd say I got into the journalism aspect in about 2008, and I never stopped.
Awesome. Great. All right, well, let's get right into the show. We got a lot to talk about, and want to get this all done in about an hour. All right, so we got a lot of news that happened over the last week, specifically related to National Geographic. So, as you may have heard, National Geographic was purchased by Fox. So, what is Fox doing buying this traditionally non-for-profit organization? Well, the reasons might be related to the financial state of National Geographic or Fox's interest in the organization, but ultimately that Fox did buy the company. And, there were predicted that this would probably lead to some changes, although the owner of National Geographic had said, "Oh no, things will be the same." But that wasn't really true, as recently we had over 200 layoffs reported. This is a pretty big deal, I think, for anyone who follows National Geographic, follows the publication, whereas any sort of stake or interest in photojournalism just because of National Geographic's long pedigree with the craft. What do you think this says about the transition, it says about the merger, or I'm sorry, the purchase, and just overall the future of the magazine? Where do we go from here?
I think Julie wrote an excellent article for Desmog blog about it, so she should take the first grasp at this.
Yeah, and in that article, I kind of skirted the issue of what it means for photojournalists to lose the opportunity to maybe work for them, because I never did work for National Geographic. From what I understand, things have been changing there all along, just like everywhere else. I can tell you one crossover in your topics is I am a contributor with Corbis, and occasionally my work would end up in National Geographic's via Corbis. So National Geographic's was using stock. And it's a matter of the whole industry changing, radically. It always does, but radically since I jumped in at the wrong time when prices just started to tank. But when you look at something like National Geographic going under, it was a good wake-up call for people who haven't been paying attention, because people have this idealistic idea of what went on there, and maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, but it is what everyone's idea of what was left, because so few magazines or TV stations or whatever will actually commission photojournalists to go and do their thing. And that supposedly was still happening at National Geographic's, and now it's not. And it should come as no surprise once it was bought out, because it seems like the first thing to go are the photographers. I mean, who needs to pay for content when you can snatch it for pennies on the dollar off Shutterstock? So I mean, that's the way my article went. I took it a step outside of National Geographic's to show the standards in the industry and how they've dropped anyway. Taking an example from The Guardian, using an image off Corbis that didn't illustrate what they claimed it would illustrate in a proper way. And that this happens all the time. And, I wouldn't go as far to say that National Geographic was doing it, but it's all about standards, in the industry all around. So it's a good starting point, but maybe you guys know more about the intricacies of National Geographic's.
I don't. I remember back in 2005, I think we had someone from the publication talk to us, or I mean, it was a nice kind of idealistic time back then when things were a little bit still stable, and it was always the dream to work for National Geographic, and I'd always heard, yeah, show us your portfolio, and then 10 years from now we'll consider you. We'll see where you've grown from there. So I never thought that I would actually be able to work for them or have my imagery published in their magazine. But now I know that if I want to get published in National Geographic, all I gotta do is publish some photographs of kittens to Shutterstock, or some other, just put some stuff on the web. They'll take it, right? No, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I think it's indicative of the entire industry in that the demand for, I guess, super high quality, visual storytelling that National Geographic produce, there's just not as much demand for it, right? I mean, isn't that the issue?
Well, no, I just think people are skirting quality, because I still think that if you do put out quality, people respond to it. It's just that because people will hit on just about anything with the kittens, that you can just ignore the quality. So it's the editors making the choice, or maybe their boss is telling them to go with the cheapest option that gets the hits. And once you go in that direction, there's no need to pay for people to make serious content.
Well, as you make the really great point about in your piece for Desmog the fact that a lot of places, and I've seen this in my own since I started shooting for like Zuma Press, they don't first, whether there is photo editors left, like Village Voice. I don't have I love working for them and they're fantastic, but there's not a photo editor there. I have maybe an art editor, or a person who oversees it, an editor that oversees the blog, but I don't have anybody who actually looks at photos and decides to match them, particularly with content. A lot of time, it's the author of the text article who finds a photo somewhere, which, as what you pointed out, it's really, really dangerous when you don't have a trained photo editor who is trained in research and knowing like matching an article. Oh, well, this is this part of New Orleans back in 2005. Oh, well, that was before.
Wait. You're actually giving more credit than I am, because my photos know when someone licensed a photo off of Corbis, the captions are there. I mean, if you get my photos, they are, and all the metadata is there, the date and all that. So it's more a matter of their budget. If you only have your $9, let's just take the image from 2 years ago rather than take a new image where you actually might have to pay someone to go shoot something.
I've worked with a bunch of different publications now. I won't name them because I think it discredits them, but that they actually I've told them, oh, all that I have my caption data in the metadata, and they're like, oh, I don't have any way of reading it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's actually like why I didn't even think about that, because like if you don't have the capability, I mean, never mind the fact it's a downloadable program, it's free, you can always do it. But they don't.
They don't know how to right-click properties.
I've had them where they like, I need the captions in emails, and that's the way they do it. And so and these are usually people who, like I said, I think the only time I've dealt with a photo editor actually in my career as a photographer for the past like 5 years, where I'd say I'm actually a working photojournalist, was probably with Al Jazeera America, and that was a commission piece, and I went through the whole thing. And that's the only time I've actually dealt with someone whose only job was to get photographs, buy them, work with photographers. Every other place, Village Voice, The Guardian, everywhere else. Oh, The Guardian, I did deal with after they stole one of my photos. I talked to talked to them, talked to their photo editor. But every other time, it's always been just a guy that runs the blog, and he doesn't know anything about. If I said metadata, he'd probably go, I don't even know what that is.
Be like, so, dude, that's totally meta.
This is the world we're working in. It's like.
Well, and the thing now is, I don't know if it's a photo editor or if it's the writer, but I know that they have a subscription rate with whatever agency, and they get X number of photos for X dollars. And so let's say they're doing a story about fracking in Texas. There'll be a picture from fracking in California, and sometimes the caption will say that even. And I think to myself, well, why didn't they at least choose a picture from the right state, and either there isn't one or someone doesn't care? It's hard to know, but it's at a certain point, it's now up to the public, because they don't care. So if the public doesn't care, they're just, whatever. So I try to be as careful as I can about my own work and share work of other people when they nail it, and point stuff out to people without telling them they're stupid. Just kind of say like, well, maybe if there's no caption, you shouldn't share that picture. You don't know where it's from, what it's about. But it's just, I don't know how to retrain the public to actually care about the information photos bring them. Because, clearly the value hasn't gone down of what proper visuals can bring all of us. So maybe you guys don't agree.
No, I could go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say, I mean, the demand for imagery and high quality imagery is still there. I think it's just the impetus to pay for it, or impetus to pay for new imagery. I mean, I look at blogs and websites, and every single story has to have an image attached of something, like I don't see ever a blog post or anything that doesn't at least have a header image. They need something to represent what they're talking about, even if it's an illustration or something. But it's, like you said, something off of a stock agency, something off of a graphic that, maybe they put together with MS Paint.
Or Creative Commons image from Flickr or something like that, which is the big problem I see.
If they get it for free, why pay for it?
Yeah, well, and then people who keep going on posting their images without watermarks to social media, just to make absolutely sure there's no attribution when they're shared, because they do lose all the metadata. So there's no chance to find it again unless someone does due diligence and uses image search or something.
Yeah. I've heard of the reverse image search, and there are companies now that do nothing but do that. So.
Yeah, it works. There's like almost no excuse to steal someone's image and say you couldn't find it.
Right.
Yeah, for a while I mentioned how the Guardian stole, according to them, accidentally stole. I think it was the article writer took the image. I had an image of Francis Fox Piven, who's a lefty Cooney professor in Manhattan, and Glenn Beck attacked her. And basically did his whole thing where she's the evil villain of the week sort of thing, and no one on the planet had a photo of her except for me, it seemed. And so my few images that I took at some documentary film thing became the images that everybody on the planet had, and I did not. Julie has scolded me a million times on it. I did not have watermarks originally on my images, because I did have watermarks. they cropped them out. And I just didn't have it across the image. Now on Flickr, because I still have it up on Flickr, it goes straight across the top of the diagonal across the image, copyright and my contact info. But that image was stolen first, I think, by Gawker, of course, and then The Guardian grabbed it, which is where I noticed it. And now, for a while, if you just did an image search for Francis Fox Piven, the first 45 images that came up was that image, and I was only paid by 3 places for that image.
So could you sue them or send them invoices or a billion?
I've done it to a bunch, but it got into
notices.
I literally, one website that I actually got a response. Most places I don't get a response. Amusingly enough, Glenn Beck's is the one place I've never gotten a response continually. The one place I got a response where they didn't either take it down or pay me was this Asian conservatives website, and I got into a 10-email long argument about the idea of fair use. And the reporter, supposedly, who was well experienced, was schooling me on that she had fair use of the image and thus could use it for free in the article about Glenn Beck. So yeah.
I don't even know what to say.
Speaking towards educating the public, I mean that's actually what I'm finding is a massive problem, especially with journalism students. Because I mean, this person that I had an argument with, she went to journalism school. She was an actual supposedly trained reporter. I mean, Gawker is as well. All the reporters that write for them right now, especially, are at least most of them. They probably went to Columbia. They went ever. I mean, they got an internship, and see, these are people that are supposedly trained in journalism, and they still think it's perfectly acceptable to steal images. When if they stole a paragraph from someone else's writing, they'd be fired and never work in the industry again. It's one thing that I've always had a big problem with, that for some reason photojournalistic images are not the equivalent of actual print writing, yet both of them are considered journalism.
Yeah, I mean, the only knowledge I really have about fair use is that, there was that incident last year or earlier this year, I can't remember, in Charleston actually, where the guy was shot by the cop in the back as he was running away. And what I can remember from that is, it was all over the news. The news used that video to tell the story, and it was okay to use that video, apparently, because during the time it was a newsworthy event. So in that time frame, they could use that video. But then after that, the guy who owned the video said, if you want to use my video, it's going to cost you $10,000 per instance. So where is that line?
Really technically only covers analysis of the image. So reading with there's a great, I've actually done Michael Shaw. I've done some work with them. He has a website that literally, what's that?
Bag Notes, but they changed their name.
Bag Notes. You're reading with pictures or something like that now, or reading pictures. It really only covers the analysis of the image, the media criticism of the image. It doesn't.
You know where it gets really muddy, because you've nailed it completely. But I ran into something with the oil and gas industry, who took one of my images and turned it into a mem. I don't even know how to pronounce that.
Meme.
Is it a mem or is it something else? Or you just but see, the other use is if it's parody. That's the other way that people can play with it. But you're right. I mean, the writers that say that it's fair use, I mean, everyone throws around that word, but you nailed the one proper fair use. And then the other one where it's really muddy because people haven't challenged it so much is this when you turn things into a joke and all. I know Getty managed to slap some pretty good lawsuits on people with that penguin. Did you guys know, some image that they had?
Oh, yeah.
More money, than someone like me. So what I did when it's not an oil company, but it's, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of it. It's one of these groups that just writes all this pro-oil and gas stuff. So I just exposed them in a report. That's why I should remember that. Working on it.
The famous one is Shepard Fairey. and AP. And I'm so happy. I mean, as much as AP photo-wise isn't always amazing with even paying their own photographers, but I'm so happy that they won that lawsuit because, I mean, he was making millions of dollars and gaining a massive amount of fame off of that famous Obama Hope poster that he made. And the fact that he originally claimed in documents, he originally claimed that, oh no, it was a composite of several images, which is allowed under, whether it be artistic fair use or whatever whatever that.
We lost you, Zach.
We lost you.
Shame too. You sound like you're really animated about what you're talking about. Well, while Zach gets reconnected, I'll vamp. So Zach had some really good points about imagery and fair use. Although when the whole Shepard Fairey thing came out, I was thinking like, well, I mean, he made like an artistic creation with the image, and then like, at what point is an image like used for influence to create artwork? Where's the degree of like artwork to image? I mean, I don't know. I'm sure the case figured that all out. Obviously, he lost. Shepard did, and AP won. But
Hello.
Hey, there he is.
Oh, I'm back. Yes, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I don't know what happened. So,
what else did you have to say about the incident?
I'm not quite sure where it cut off, but the fact that Shepard Fairey was claiming that it was a composite of several different images, and then actually in emails he admitted in an email to somebody else, I guess, during the trial, that it was a lone image, which is what killed him, and I don't know how much money he had to pay out, but this is something that the media and the artists and everything like that hide behind all the time. That it's artistic, and it's I can't remember the name of the relatively famous or the very, very famous artist that.
Richard Prince.
What's that?
Richard Prince.
Oh, Richard Prince is a fantastic one. I mean, he doesn't even claim though, really, to like that he's done any work on it. He just does a screenshot for the most part or takes a photo. I was thinking of a mixed media artist whose name is eluding me, but yeah, Richard Prince is the fantastic example how he's allowed to do that in any way, shape, and form is beyond me, and it's just, I think it's also just it shows the amazing the difference between again, if somebody had taken a bunch of text from a book and printed it on a thing and without a quote, and claimed it as their own, they'd be sued and they'd lose in court. But since it's a visual image, for some reason, it perplexes me why the law doesn't apply to that the same way it applies to actual text, which can actually be easily copied. A single image, especially a photojournalistic image, is probably the most individual piece of imagery, if I'm using this too much now, possible, because it can never be duplicated again. Unlike even a drawing can be relatively easily duplicated. But anyway.
Well, hey, you know what? I'm glad we got to the bottom of that National Geographic issue. So we figured that out, which is great, and we solved their issue. So let's move on to the second topic of the night. Virtual reality is the next big thing. It's like first there was 3D, and now there's virtual reality. And what I think, though, virtual reality is going to do is actually be a legitimate medium that people want to get involved in. I myself have been using the Google VR for a long time, since that came, Gear VR for a while, and I think it's fantastic. But the New York Times thinks that VR is also the way to go. And it has invested a lot of money into supporting VR by giving like 1 million subscribers of their newspaper a copy of the Google Cardboard goggles, and by also investing a lot in different stories that are shot in the VR medium. So I actually checked out their app, and I downloaded one of their stories, and I think they do a pretty good job, at least in the one story I watched, with using the medium to tell a story. And I've seen some of the other products created by other companies through the Gear VR, and I really think that it's a great way. And again, it doesn't fit for, like, say, every story, but I think in the stories that I've seen, it was a really great way to immerse the audience in a story that would have, I think, fallen flat or would not be as engaging in sort of the traditional photo slideshow plus audio multimedia product that you might see created with like sound slides or Premiere or something like that. Have either of you experimented with or tried or seen any of the VR products that are out there? No, from Julie.
I looked into because unfortunately I live upstate New York, so I was not one of the honored New York Times subscribers to get the cardboard box thing that allowed people to slip their phones in. And unfortunately, every single one was like $25 to download it, or to buy it. To buy the like cardboard box thing was actually $20, and then everything else went up from there. So I haven't looked into it directly. I haven't been able to actually experience it, and I'm quite certain it's absolutely amazing. I though do feel as though this is another one of those losing games for at least the visual medium of what we are able to and are expected now to produce. Not to be constantly the naysayer about it, but the reason that New York Times was able to do this was because Google. My understanding is at least that Google offered them a massive grant to do this. And this is something, I'm on a whole bunch of different media listservs, and the only time I ever see, especially on the progressive end, like low budget, independent stuff, the only time I ever see any money for anything to do with journalism, it's the Knight Foundation technology grant, or it's this or that or whatever. And nothing actually pays for journalism. It'll pay for the research, the coding, the tech, the cool thing that makes everybody in Silicon Valley, want to get involved. But no one actually pays for, I doubt that Google paid a single penny towards the photojournalists flying over to Syria or wherever the three refugees were, that at least in one of the stories that I saw that featured. So, I mean, it's great. And I feel like, and hopefully that maybe that's a way to get people to actually give a crap about the journalism, the very important journalism, the stories that they told.
Well, I don't know. I think you brought up a really good point, and Dave, you made it sound really interesting, so I want to check it out. But I have to say, if you can't tell a story straight and you need bells and whistles and stuff, it's probably not worth telling the story. And I think a lot of the bells and whistles these days handicap the stories. I mean, I don't want to keep pointing out at the Guardian, but I mean, there are news stories with video. They're like, well, all right, I'll leave them out. I'll just say my local paper here in New Orleans, the Picayune, who fired most of their photo staff. Then they have the ones that are there doing like pseudo TV news with music and stuff. And it's like, they're not memorable. So, you have to tell me, Dave, are these that memorable? And who's going to watch them? I was just shooting today out in Pure Part, Louisiana, where all the people that I met, they don't have the internet, So should they not get the news? I know I sound like an old fart.
Well, what they can do is they can print out a long strip of paper, and then they can wrap it around their head. And then that way they just look at this piece of paper, and that's their virtual reality. That's what they get.
It sounds really cool, and you made it sound really interesting. It's just, when I hear, though, like, that's the new thing, it's kind of like, well, what's wrong with the old thing? And sure, you need new things for them, for advertisers or whatever, but it's kind of sad when that's the emphasis, that's all, Yeah,
I don't think the old thing ever goes away, or loses value in a sense that, it'll always be there, everything has a place, and from my experience using it, it's just another way to engage with the story. And it's completely different than looking at a computer screen and staring at images, opening up a newspaper and reading through the newspaper, popping, through your phone with your thumb and kind of browsing whatever
Well, you have me
newspaper.
intrigued. You definitely have me intrigued.
Yeah, I'll let you both know a link to. You can get Google Cardboard cheap. I mean, I've got a copy of it for I got for $3 from China or something like that. So I'll
Cool.
send you the link. Or, you can step up and get the nice Gear VR if you have a Samsung phone, which is what I have. I've got the Note 4, but it's also out for the Note 5 and the Galaxy S6.
Big S is
So-
not compatible with the Note 3 that I have, so I have to upgrade every 2 years so I can get the news on a new operating system.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is the problem though, and I think I play. I think I may even be older and playing the older down player than Julie on this, but I just feel as though we're constantly losing the battle. Oh, I was just about to buy a drone. Literally, in the next month, I was going to buy a small drone to start learning how to shoot drone photography, because that's the next thing that I have to know how to do on top of my still, on top of my video, on top of my editing, on top of the fact that, research and everything else. And it's just, oh, wait, I still have 500 hours in my bank account. And it's just, and I feel like we're losing this constant battle with Silicon Valley, because that's where all the money is right now. And so it's just, this is where the tech is going. And we're all going to be expected to do this. And all the other newspapers are going to, the Picayune Times is not going to be able to do this probably. I know that it's probably a low, that the way that they're doing it and the tech that they're doing it is a kind of a low buy-in. But it's still, again, how many stories can be told this way? And if this is what people also start to expect when it comes to their news, then they start going, it's just, it doesn't have any photos, it doesn't have any it doesn't have any whatever. I just feel like this is not a good road to go down. And I'll be the Luddite on this panel right now, where I'm fine. I want to go back to shooting film.
Well, you want to talk about cost. Nothing costs more than having to shoot and develop film all the time after a while. But
I don't know. I
think-
only need one roll. What do you need?
Oh,
You need to shoot that many rolls?
24 frames. All right,
I
buddy.
get 36
That's a challenge.
shots and I get 36 usable images.
On your next shoot, you can only shoot 36 frames. That's it.
Oh God, no.
You figure that one out.
Yeah.
But I think once you guys, again, download the New York Times VR app. I believe it's available for Android. I know it's available for Android. I'm pretty sure it's available for iPhone. I'm not 100% sure. But if you have an Android phone, check it out. It should work even on your Note 3. Again, you can play with it. Just play with it on your phone. You don't need the cardboard to play with it. Although, again, using the headset does make it a much more immersive experience. And like you said, it's not for every story, but I think their stories...
You saw, I want to break in. So you've seen a couple of them. Which photographers have you seen their work? Do you even take note of their names, or is it about the final thing and not the person who makes it?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, the only one I saw was a video, a 360 video about an artist in New York City who actually did the New Yorker cover. He pasted a bunch of strips of paper onto the ground.
I guess what I'm getting at was the video powerful enough, the experience powerful enough, where you were like, who made that? And you actually took note of who the camera person was.
No, I didn't.
And then that tells me a lot. It tells me I'm not interested in that material yet. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, it's like, when you think of 360 video specifically, again, if it was maybe a 360 photo slideshow, I think that'd be a different story, because a 360 photo slideshow is different in that you have one image that you're looking around, okay?
Mhm.
You're in that image, and that image was created by a photographer, and that photographer is narrating over those images. It's similar, again, to like a multimedia presentation with photos and audio, and that's engaging, and that's, you want to know the photographer who crafted that. With the 360 video, I think it's less important or less significant, because in the ones I saw, the video is either controlled by the artist, like he puts it on a tripod and talks to it, and it's just a simple shot inside of a studio, or it's on his moped, or it's hanging from a helicopter. The video itself, like, there is no like camera movement or anything like that. It's just placed in interesting spots. So in those cases, I wasn't thinking of the person behind the camera, because there is no one technically behind the camera.
I'm showing my ignorance of the material and media. I'll have to check it out. Like I said, when you talk about it, sounds pretty cool.
Please, by all means, do check it out. Let me know what you think. I think it's awesome. Again, I think anything, even if it's just like a flash in the pan technology, if it gives photojournalists an opportunity to express themselves, yeah, it's something new you have to learn. Yeah, it's like the DJI Phantom. You have to learn this new medium. You have to learn 360 photography or 360 videography. Although, thankfully, there's a lot of new cameras out there, or new cameras that are coming out that can shoot this stuff automatically and stitch it together. But there's also, it's so easy to create a 360 photo. From what I was looking at online, you shoot like
that's
4
great.
super wide angle
Everybody can
photos.
just do it off their iPhone, and there's no need for us anymore. So that's cool. That's cool.
Exactly. All right. Well, I'm glad we solved that issue. We're just a bunch of issue solvers here. But anyways, check out VR from the New York Times. Check out VR and the Gear VR. It's totally awesome. I try and show everybody who I can it.
Thanks.
So moving on. So our third topic of the night is photojournalism and film. Now, I've seen a lot of documentaries. I've seen documentaries about photographers. I've seen documentaries about photography. But I've never seen, or I can't remember ever seeing, a documentary about photojournalism or photojournalists. At least not... Again, I haven't even seen this documentary. I'm talking about a film I haven't seen. I'm talking about a film I saw the trailer for. But it looked pretty intriguing from the trailer. The film is called Frame by Frame. And it's about the first photojournalists that were trained after the Taliban left Afghanistan. And it looks pretty interesting. So what I want to know is, did you guys check out the trailer? What do you think of this concept? Is this looking an interesting film to you? Do you want to see a film about people in your profession?
I absolutely love. I saw this a while ago, or the trailer for it a while ago, and been looking forward to seeing it. Once it's out? And I'm completely obsessed with any time that photojournalists are featured in a positive light, not in a paparazzi or any other way, but in a positive light, and what photojournalism, why it's important. From even though it was a terrible film, the Bang Bang Club, and then HBO had a fantastic series called Witness, which, if you haven't checked out, highly recommend it. Which featured stories about different photojournalists from around the world, actually, and followed them doing their craft. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to watch it. That sounds pretty cool, though. But yeah, sure, I love to watch and read about other people out in the field, see how they work. It's always interesting. Even the bad movies.
Is there any film or anything about any photography or filmmaking or photojournalism, Julie, that you've seen in the past that you can recommend?
Gosh, nothing's coming to mind right now. I'm sorry I didn't read your descriptions more. I thought you were going to be talking about how the New York Times is going more toward video. So something will pop into my head, I'm sure.
Okay.
But mostly they're the bad movies.
I highly recommend. There's a small film that it didn't really do much, but I saw it. It came out in 2013, called A Thousand Times Good Night. It has Juliette Binoche as a war photographer, and it's one of those films where it actually kind of deals with photojournalists who go away a lot and have to come back home. And it's one of the first times I've ever seen a film where it's a female photographer dealing with her husband back home and kids, and dealing with her they kind of portray it a little bit of addiction to being out, adrenaline and everything like that. But just speaking randomly about type of films about photojournalists, highly, highly recommend that film, because it did not anywhere get near enough press when it came out. That is, again, 1,000 Times Good Night.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll watch it.
Yeah.
The only films I can remember that had photography or photojournalism, I see like the war films, like Full Metal Jacket, featuring the public affairs guy, photographer. When We Were Soldiers, that had the photojournalist in it, but those are all fictional pieces. But in terms of documentary filmmaking, there was a documentary that was, I think, kickstarted, which was about a street photographer, and the guy discovered her entire catalog of work in a trunk, and it was all her photographs, and he made a documentary. But it was more about her as a person, I guess. I don't see it. But
Vivian Maier, I think it was.
I think so. Yeah, I haven't seen it, but again, I think they're few and far between. So if you have an opportunity, go check out Frame by Frame. It's playing at select locations for like the next 6 months or so, but apparently you can somehow get it into your theater. I don't really know. I didn't check it out. Go check out the website. It'll be in the show notes. All right, let's try to get on the home stretch here. We talked about this a little bit. Julie, you brought it up, but let's go ahead, and since you're kind of the expert in it, let's talk a little bit about Corbis. They're cutting about 15% of their workers amid a photo price war. So, Corbis, if you don't know, is one of the most iconic stock photo agencies around, with, I think, moon landing photos and people sitting on construction thingamajigs eating lunch. You know that photograph, black and white. It's famous. Look it up. You know what I'm talking about. Julie, why don't you go ahead and start us off? Why don't you talk a little bit about, this is your suggestion, so what does this mean for photojournalism? What does this mean for freelancers?
It just shows the further free fall of pricing. I mean, Corbis, like you said, that is unfortunately a rock and a hard place with whether they were going to, copy Getty and keep dropping their prices. They never went to free, but once they moved into the realm of subscription prices, it was very tough. As a photographer who, has a pretty large library with them, I pretty much stopped syndicating when I couldn't opt out of the subscription prices, because, even though I'd get a couple of nice, really big sales, I didn't like to see my work where I get under $5. I draw the line, so I didn't want to see it. I'd rather get nothing. And then you cut yourself out in a certain place if you do that. So it's a funny wall, but for me, it comes down to people, we talked about photo editors, good people. I've done 2010. I feel bad that are cut. They all stayed respectful. They had to deal with people like me who complain when my images were, I felt, being sold too cheap or even stolen, because some of these subscriptions the clients get to just download like on Scout's Honor. So as a photographer, then you have to like watch all that too, and you'll find you're not even getting paid the $5. It's just unbelievable. But from what I read about Corbis, their bottom line where they really took a deeper nosedive was when Getty pulled this free business, and that's I don't know how you guys felt about it, but
What is this
I was
free
very
stuff you're talking about?
This is when they allowed people to embed their photos, right?
For free, yeah, and
Yeah.
you had to follow certain things, or Getty would still come at you for, I don't know, some set price for breaking their rules. But you want a picture of that cat with blue hair or whatever, you go there and there's no price for it. It's free. It was about clicks and stuff, and then the photographer no longer gets commission, though Getty claims somehow it would get from the top down to the people back somehow or another. I don't think that ever happened, but so now not only are you competing with Shutterstock, where images are like $27 a piece if you pay $1.99 a month, I think it is. I had a filmmaker just last night bargaining with me for some video footage. He wants to use worldwide distribution, and I'd given him a price, and we've gone back and forth, and he's like, well, that stuff isn't that special, and that's the going rate. And I look at Shutterstock, and I'm like, well, the guy has a point. I had sold him stuff at a pretty good rate for pictures he couldn't get that were aerials of the San Juan Basin in New Mexico that no one else had. And then he wanted some other stuff. So I'm like, all right, I'll take his money, after I look at Shutterstock and see what my competition is. So we all have to decide what we're going to do. But to see Corbis fall, it's more like nostalgia. You could almost guess it was going to happen. How can you compete with free? I don't know.
You pay people to download your imagery. That's how you compete with free. I'm just kidding. That's what it's going to come to. Buy my imagery. Here, I'll pay for it.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. And you got a point. That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, people in the art world do that pay to play. They'll rent a whole gallery to say they have a show, and people get conned in to all of that. I just wish we could retrain people's brains, like to say value. Yeah. If everybody would just buy in and hold us some kind of value, but that's just not going to happen.
I mean, I'm playing with the embedding feature right now, or at least I'm playing with their gallery. I'm just looking up some pictures here, and I can see why they do it. I mean, it's a advertising tool for Getty. So
yeah, but how does that work for you, the photographer? If you're syndicating your work, let's say you would have gotten $5 for that web use that you just downloaded for them to. How does the photographer benefit, right?
And they claimed that they could actually do this without paying the photographer, and the fact that it's actually under the promotional aspect of the photos, right? If I remember,
they switched to that. I thought they were going to try to figure out a way to make everyone happy.
I mean, my understanding is that at least I haven't heard anything, that they still have yet to really pay anybody, and that for Getty, that the only way that they're making money from it, it's a data grab, and that they're selling the data because the code that's in there. Yeah. Every single blog, every single website that uses those embedded images, they get to know the traffic of those places, so they get to sell that data, which is honestly the future of actually making any sort of money on the internet. It's all about data. So they know what they're doing, I guess, in that way, not so much as in paying photographers.
I totally agree. I do think that they knew what they were doing, but I think that Corbis got caught in it. Though, the counter side is look at their stock value, and how much debt they're in. Wasn't it like a couple of other $1 million that had to be borrowed or to keep them from going under? So it's all, I don't really know. All I know is it definitely played a role in taking Corbis down, and who knows, Shutterstock takes it over, then everybody who's got images syndicated there now, instead of like between $1 and $5, what you can look forward to 20 cents. Yeah. I don't know.
It adds up over time. I'm just kidding.
Well, I photographed for Zuma Press for 1.5 years now, and the payout was supposed to be $200 when I finally get a check, and I still have not gotten a check from them. So I've sold about 20 or 30 images. So God only knows what they're selling my photos for.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Once it gets that low, it's better you just keep them on your own site. I get better, which is amusing which is actually just something I look into, because I think Demotics is actually owned by Corbis. They are.
I would always I've got better sales from Demotics than I have anywhere else other than direct sales. I mean, obviously it's always crap. It's $25, $50 or I think once I got $100 for an image that I still don't know where it was used, but I got $100 for it.
But that's where, photographers have to start thinking about not syndicated. I mean, once the prices got that low, I totally stopped syndicating breaking news, for example, because I didn't want to contribute to the race to the bottom. But, to each his own, because the rate we've already gotten there. That's one thing. But the thing is, I don't want $5 for my breaking news. I'd rather have nothing. I'd rather put it on my own blog, and keep it special than, so
it's like,
I don't know.
Why would you help some other company, raise
Exactly.
their stock price or raise their,
So many of us seem to be willing to do it. I wondered how many other photographers at Corbis tried to get them to do what I did, which was insist on not opting out of a subscription. If you look up any of my images on Corbis, it says these images are not available for subscription. The problem with that, I finally got them to do that, is there's no way for them to enforce it. So they were just humoring me, and they claimed that that I'm clearly not the only one who was concerned about that, and they're very respectful there, and they were trying to do something. But in the meantime, they find 15% of their staff getting cut. So I'm kind of done with that. I did convince them to put watermarks on contributors' photographs when they put them on Facebook. For a while, they were using contributors' photos with no watermark, a nice size, right on Facebook. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, in my contract, it says you guys are supposed to protect my intellectual property, and you're giving it to Zuckerberg. So I don't think enough of us, like you can get upset about something and express yourself without having a diatribe and being angry. And in the end, I just use the reverse argument on them, which is what I do to try to train other people to do it. It's branding, like people pay to have brands, like brand the photos, and they did, and I was very happy. It took 5 months or so of back and forth, but I mean, one of the reasons I like them over there so much is they could have just dumped me for complaining. We're all replaceable, right? Seems like.
Fortunately, yeah.
I'm irreplaceable. I'm a special little flower. No one can touch me.
I am too, but I'm not replaceable. I mean, Corbis can replace me. And the places that I stopped working for because the pay went lower and lower, they clearly replaced me, but I figured it out where I'm not replaceable. So
now, if you're a contributor to Corbis or AP or something, can you pull all your imagery from them?
Yeah, but it's not a quick process. I think the contract, it's 2 or 3 years. So, it's kind of scary. I mean, all the contracts are something like that. Though, it's in the contract that there are certain things they're supposed to do to protect you. So I figure if they're not protecting you, there might be a way out. But no, so I don't know. Who knows what Shutterstock will do? If Shutterstock will put all of Corbis's stuff in the same cheap level, or why would they? I mean, Corbis is still making some money, right? They made $100 million or something. So who knows? Scary business, though. It's like you can't even count on any stock sales from agencies anymore.
Right.
I mean, Dave, were you doing anything with agencies?
I worked for a photo agency in New York City when I was working as a freelancer there, and I made some money, but it really wasn't enough to make like a living. But it wasn't bad money. But I think I was producing a product that was difficult to obtain and still had value. That agency since then, I don't know how it's done. I haven't worked for them in 8 years or so, but I would say even then when I was working there, I was surprised anyone bought imagery. I mean, why people buy magazines, I don't even know. I mean, I've not bought a magazine in, I don't know, 15 years, a decade. I don't know why people buy magazines when they can just get anything they want to see online. So I was surprised people even paid for my imagery.
Well, that was my big thing when National Geographic was bought out, and I asked every single person I knew, when's the last time you bought an issue of
You
National Geographic.
No, you can't buy them, Zach. You have to have a subscription. It's always been like that.
You can buy.
Oh, did they finally change that and have them at the newsstands? Because that was.
I mean, I bought the last 2 issues because the last one was about climate change, and then
You know what? I think
this one I forget what it was about.
I think it's a pretty new thing that you can buy them at newsstands. It used to be it was like an exclusive thing, and you were a member of National Geographic. So that's why in the garbage you'd find like 10 years of them at a time. Right. But you get it was a subscription thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's kind of the same thing. Everybody decried it on I was crying on my Facebook page and everything like that. And I'm like, okay, so everybody raise your hand who's a subscriber, and not a single person I know was a subscriber. I used to be a couple of years ago, and I know a friend of mine used to be a couple of years before that. But I just go, everybody wants to complain about something when it's gone, but no one wants to support it while it's here. I mean, it's kind of a nonprofit world.
That is one angle of the conversation, but if you read an article that came out a couple days after the sale was done, the Washington Post was showing that National Geographic was flush with money.
Yeah.
And they gave their top people millions of dollars in salary and buyouts. So
I feel like there's a story that still needs to be told about how that whole sale happened.
So it's not about that people weren't buying the magazine. Maybe you didn't and your friends don't. But that wasn't.
I'm really curious on how if they made their money from actually the Fox Ventures, the TV channels which were financially successful, or whether it was the magazine, because obviously the magazine is very expensive for $6.95 cover price. I imagine that probably 10,000 people need to buy it just to send that one guy out to Borneo or whatever with a drone and a whole crew. I mean, that's my hope is that hopefully somebody starts up something similar to National Geographic that features or Life magazine before it that features photojournalism, and then people will buy it, and hopefully it'll be somebody who can make a deal. I will never sell out to Rupert Murdoch.
Hey, you know what? Let's do it right here, now. Let's start the Kickstarter. Okay.
A couple buddies of mine and I were talking about doing it before National Geographic was sold. So, anybody
not for profit, photojournalism solely focused. None of this video shenanigans. None of this
I'm okay
VR.
With that. I'm okay with the videos too. I mean,
nope. Photos printed, okay, on paper, mailed to you. None of this internet shenanigans. None of these computers. None of these iPhones. Forget that. Forget it. Forget about it. You want to appreciate the photojournalism? We'll send you some slides. Some color positives in some slides.
Silver prints or nothing.
You put it into your slide projector. You project it on your wall. That's how you'll appreciate our photojournalism. You'll have a cassette tape. You put in your cassette player. You play it along with it. You hear the voice of the photojournalist talk about it, and they'll project the image. That's how you appreciate photojournalism.
Agreed. I'm in.
Woohoo! All right, guys, I'll put the Kickstarter up. We'll get it funded. I'm guessing in 24 hours. Right? That's how it works. Yeah. All right, well, let's close out this week's show with the best in photojournalism. We can, of course, we can be pessimistic, but it's the reality of the field. It's a tough field, but there's still photojournalism being produced every day. And there's all kinds of work out there. So is there any work that you think our audience should look at anywhere, either be on the web, a movie, a picture that you liked, that you saw in the news? Is there any photojournalism that you want people to appreciate?
From the last week, I can say all I've been doing is working. So that's why I didn't even click on all your links. I have a feature that's going to come out on Atlas Obscura's website where I was some kind of sponsorship deal with Olympus that I checked out one of their cameras so I can press my own work. But I just didn't get a chance. So whatever you guys say is worth looking at, I'll go look at. I'm like out of it.
No, I totally understand. Zach, is there anything you want us to look at?
There is, as my usual, I'm a big fan of the Boston Globe's Big Picture.
Okay.
There is a photo series there about the World Indigenous Games, which I highly recommend. Just some very, very cool photos there from a whole bunch of different photographers. Actually, it looks like mostly from Reuters.
Yeah.
Oh, no, there's a couple AP photos, but highly, highly recommend. And it's fascinating subjects and also really great photos.
Okay.
So.
You're talking about the World Games for Indigenous
The
Peoples
World Indigenous
in
Games,
Palmas, Brazil?
down in Brazil. Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Well, I always like to go to The Week, theweek.com. They do The Week in photojournalism, and it's just a really nice set of images. I love the variety, and you can always see something new and different over there. And it's good. You got the portraits, you got the features, you got the sports. It's your hodgepodge of good old fashioned photojournalism. And if you want to see these images, subscribe to our newsletter. We'll print them out on pieces of paper and send them to you in the mail.
On the back
Who
of a
wants
dump?
things instantly?
None of these fancy automobiles.
Nah, we'll send it to you via horse.
And automobile engines.
Pony Express. It'll be in your mailbox in 2 to 3 months. And if you want any comments, you write them down on paper. You put them in a piece of paper and you put a stamp on it. You mail it in.
It'll be an Office Quarterly.
All right, great. Well, hey, guys, thanks again. You've been an excellent panel tonight on our inaugural episode of Around the Lens. Woo! So, of course, this is your opportunity to plug anything you would like to plug, your Twitter, your Facebook, your website, your email, whatever you want people who might be interested in getting to know more about you and who you are. So we'll start, of course, ladies first.
Oh, then you better go with Zach. I'm so far from being a lady. You got the wrong broad. No, I'm not messing with you. But let's see. A lot of my stories are on Desmog blog.
Okay.
Zach also shot for them. We're probably the only 2 people that really provide photo content with them. It's an investigative journalist site for environmental issues. And I have a piece coming out tomorrow or the next day about the Everglades. That's multimedia with Indigenous people and the concerns they have as the Everglades continues to go to crap.
Yeah.
So my website is myname.com, Julie Dermansky, that's a long one, or jsdart.com.
And those will be in the show notes. Zach?
There you go.
I am ZD Roberts across the board on Twitter, on Facebook, on my email. Unfortunately, you can't physically mail me there, but if anyone really wants, I can give you my home address.
That's very dangerous. Good luck to you.
But I am currently working on a documentary film with Greg Palast about elections, and that should be hopefully out next year. And hopefully working on some stuff with the Desmog blog and Steve Horn if he ever gets back to me.
Good luck with that. I'm everything me is DJM Photo. D as in David, J as in Jonathan, M as in Murphy, and the word photo like photography. So look at that for Twitter and Facebook and .coms and emails and whatever you want to find me at. And the major project I have going on is this podcast, which I'm going to post to my website and then all the podcast catchers of choice. But you're probably already listening to this, so you already know that. So I don't know why I'm telling you that. But hey, subscribe, listen to it every week, post comments, rate, tell us what you think. If you like it, if you don't, I'm okay with that. All right. Again, thank you, Julie. Thank you, Zach. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.